I remember the first time I realized my dreams were bigger than the fences around me. It wasn't some grand revelation in a quiet room with a notebook and a cup of coffee. No, it happened on a day that looked like any other. The sun came through the same window, the air smelled the same, and the routine was painfully familiar. Wake up, dress up, put on the mask, go through the motions. But deep down, something inside me was restless. It was like trying to fit a storm inside a glass jar. I couldn't explain it at first, but I knew I was outgrowing the life I was living. It's strange, isn't it, how boundaries don't always come from the outside. Sometimes they're invisible, woven from the words of people we love, from the fears we inherit, from the doubts that echo in our heads late at night. I had those fences everywhere. You're not smart enough. You're not strong enough. You don't come from the right family. You'll never be able to pull that off. Those weren't just words. They became the bars of the cage I lived in. And every time I tried to stretch, every time I dared to dream, I felt the sting of those limits. But here's what made it worse. Started believing them. I started shrinking my dreams so they could fit inside the fences. I convinced myself that wanting more was selfish, that trying to go further would end in failure, that maybe I was made for small things and I should just be content. And for a while, I played that game. I smiled, I nodded, I followed the rules. But late at night, when no one was watching, I felt it. That ache, that gnawing voice that whispered, "This isn't it. There's more." I didn't know how to explain it to anyone. How do you tell people that your heart feels like it's suffocating in a room with no windows? How do you confess that you wake up every morning feeling like you're living someone else's life, trapped inside walls you didn't even build? It makes you feel ungrateful, even guilty, because so many people would be thankful for what you have. But gratitude and growth are not the same. You can be grateful and still crave more. You can appreciate the ground you stand on and still long for the horizon. One day, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, and I asked myself a question that changed everything. What if the fences aren't real? What if they're just stories? What if they're just fears passed down, opinions disguised as truth, limitations dressed up as advice? And if they weren't real, what would stop me from walking past them? That thought was terrifying, because the truth is, sometimes it feels safer to stay inside the cage you know than to risk stepping into the unknown. But that morning, I felt something shift. I realized that the pain of staying trapped had finally become heavier than the fear of walking free. And that's when my journey really began. I wish I could tell you that the moment I made that decision, everything turned golden and perfect. It didn't. In fact, that's where the real struggle began. Stepping outside the fence isn't like opening a door, it's like pushing against walls that fight back. The fear doesn't disappear. It screams louder. The doubts don't vanish. They multiply. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion. People you thought would cheer for you start warning you instead. And you begin to wonder, am I making a mistake? Am I crazy for wanting more? I wrestled with those questions every single day. And the hardest part wasn't the voices around MIT, was the voice inside me. That voice knew every weakness, every failure, every scar, and it used them like weapons. Remember the last time you tried? Remember when you failed? Remember how it felt? That voice was relentless, and many nights I thought about giving up, crawling back into the safety of smallness. At least there, the pain was familiar. But then something happened. Slowly, quietly, I started to see cracks in the fence. Small victories, tiny breakthroughs. The first time I pushed past fear and realized I didn't die, I didn't collapse, I didn't lose everything. The first time I dared to take a step and the ground didn't give way beneath me. Those moments were small, but they mattered. They taught me something crucial, that the fence was never as strong as I thought. It only looked that way because I never tested it. I started testing it more. I began saying yes to opportunities that scared me. I started speaking when my instinct was to stay silent. I started trying things I thought I wasn't capable of. And each time, the fence stretched a little further, until I began to see that maybe there were no fences at all. Maybe the only limits that existed were the ones I had agreed to believe. And let me tell you, once you taste that kind of freedom, there's no going back. It's like taking a deep breath after years of shallow air. It's like realizing the world was never locked, it was only waiting for you to push the door. Now, I won't pretend it became easy. It didn't. Every step outside the fence came with resistance. I lost people along the way. Friends who couldn't understand. Family who thought I'd lost my mind. I faced failures that knocked the wind out of me. Setbacks that left me questioning everything. But here's what I discovered. Every time I stumbled, I learned. Every time I fell, I grew. And the dream inside me, it grew too. It became stronger than the fences, stronger than the doubts, stronger than the fear. That's when I realized something powerful. Dreams aren't meant to fit inside fences. They're meant to outgrow them. That's the whole point. The dream isn't just about what you achieve. It's about who you become in the process. It's about becoming the kind of person who no longer accepts limits as truth. And so, as I stand here today telling you this story, I don't want you to think of me as someone who figured it all out. I haven't. I'm still learning. I'm still testing the fences. But I've learned enough to know that you are capable of more than the walls around you would have you believe. You are bigger than your boundaries. And if you ever feel that ache inside, that restlessness, that whisper that says there's more, listen to it. That's your soul reminding you who you really are, because one day you'll look back. And when you do, I hope you won't see a life lived inside fences. I hope you'll see a journey where you dared to step beyond, where you let your dreams grow larger than your limits, where you chose freedom over fear. And if that's the story you want, then maybe today is the day you start writing it.